Yes, I've got a group together who are up for playing a TTRPG campaign with me. They like my elevator pitch and are looking forward to hearing more about the world before they start building their characters. I love this part of the game. The world is going to be so epic. There's going to be dungeons, there's going to be dragons, there's going to be floating castles, there's going to be a goblin aristocracy, there's going to be a secret race of aliens who turn out to be the chief exports of Atterberg are fruits, nuts, legumes, non-ferrous metal, lumber, and clockwork machinery. It has a population of 50,000 and is 2,000 miles away from where our adventure starts, in the middle of the Zaragoza jungle. Is this you? Go on, honestly, is it? 'Cause it's certainly been me before. Building worlds for TTRPGs is something I really enjoy, but I am very capable of getting lost in the minutiae and details. So how do we start building worlds? How do we stop? What is the correct level of prep so that your world feels lush and full of things for your players to explore? Well, you've not written a full novel before you've even started rolling a dice. Let's find out. My name's Rich, and this is Renegade Rolls. If you just don't like it, or you're pressed for time, you can skip world building entirely. Relying on pre-published modules, or just making things up on the fly, is completely fine, and might well be the right choice for a lot of GMs. For me, assuming I have the luxury of time, coming up with a world, its history, and populating it with interesting people for my players to interact with is one of my favourite parts of the hobby, only beaten by being at the table, playing in these worlds that I've made. When getting started, there are two schools of thought to world building, top-down and bottom-up. Top-down is figuring out the big stuff first, and then honing in on the finer details. Who are the gods? Why are there scars in the sky instead of stars? The bottom-up approach has a hyper-focus on detail to begin with, before broadening out to look at more of the world. So what exactly is the look, the sound, the smell, the taste of the prison cell that the characters wake up in at the start of session 1? What soup is being served by the monks in the market square? Both approaches come with risks. For top-down, once you've established those big themes, the temptation to build out the cosmology, the history, the mythology of your world in every detail can be incredibly strong. But you could get to game night without any specifics on where the characters actually are in session 1. For bottom up, you've found yourself putting a load of work into the character's starting location, but you might never want them to leave. Also, you might find you struggle if players ever ask why things are the way they are. You might not have figured that out. So let's stop world building for just a minute and see if we can figure out a smarter way of doing this. My solution is to use both of them in tandem. It works best when I think about multiple levels of therefore for the top down and multiple levels of why for the bottom up. This is an expansion of a tip I heard from Justin Alexander of the Alexandrian with his 3 levels of why. There are scars in the sky instead of stars. Therefore, people associate nighttime with horror and terror. Therefore, there's not much nightlife in any of the towns unless they're incredibly well lit. The monks are serving glowstool soup. Why? Because the famine hit the region especially hard, and all of the crops which usually would go into soup, they're not available anymore. Why is that? Because weather systems worldwide have been disrupted ever since the opening of the Rift. If you have a mid-level fact about the world, you can play the why and therefore games in both directions, come up with a whole chain of reasoning which could spawn a load of new ideas. This dual approach of therefore and why can be used for some specific bits of world building as well. For my Daggerheart playtest 10-shot that I'm running, I decided to make my own pantheon, based on the idea of one deity per domain. One of the big themes of Daggerheart is this idea of duality, the most obvious in those hope and fear dice, but also each class has 2 domains. For example, the warrior class has bone and blade. I decided this means they might have 2 deities that they worship, or at least 2 gods who are interested in their passage through the mortal realms. The bottom-up details that I added were sayings and aphorisms associated with each deity. I actually came up with all of these really quickly, just thinking in terms of what would be intriguing for the characters to overhear some NPC saying. If you're looking to take a weight off your shoulders and create a world that your players are even more invested in, then collaborative world building might be for you. Back to Daggerheart again, and the playtest bundle comes with some maps with interesting places. In session 0, players are encouraged to mark down on the map places which are important to their characters. I then took the map away, filled in some of the gaps, and came up with a few lines about each place, and was able to present a world which felt epic and belonging to them from session 1. This doesn't have to stop when your campaign starts. You can collaborate with your players throughout your campaign, and your games will be better for it. One of my favourite computer games is Dwarf Fortress. Along with being a colony maker and unintended consequence simulator, the way it makes worlds is fascinating and shared on screen at the beginning of every game. It does the whole thing chronologically, starting with the geology of the world, then the climate, then the flora and fauna, then the rise and fall of civilizations, and finally you get to the point where you can start a game. This is wonderful for a computer game, but terrible for TTRPGs. If I was trying to follow this approach manually, it would take me years. There are, however, tools which have distilled this technique of starting from the very beginning down into just a few rollable tables. I particularly like this one from RPGBot, which has you begin by rolling for cosmology and prevalence of magic in the world. I love using random tables, though not always the random part. What I'll often find is I'll roll something random, realise I don't want that, and then find the thing on the table that I'd prefer to have instead. On a related note, a tip I heard recently from Lazy DM himself, Shea, is that if you want to ramp up the oddity and unusualness of locations found within your world, try rolling twice on a table and combining the results. Let's try it with the table of random monuments from the Lazy DM's workbook. We have 17 and 40. Let's have a look. So 40 is a cairn and 11 is a mosaic. Ooh, on top of the highest peak there is a cairn, a collection of rocks. But this has been so carefully crafted, so ornately designed, with each stone forming a mosaic of myriad colours. Who built it? How is it in such good repair? Those are questions for later. To keep it feeling like there's more to see than can ever be seen, more to do than can ever be done, I like to think about the horizon. What can the characters see in the distance? You see those two hills? My house is between those hills. When thinking about the area the characters are in, what can they see or hear or smell that they can't quite get to yet? Having seeds of ideas makes the world feel big, and it's a handy way of telegraphing what might be coming up in a few sessions' time. The challenge with this, and with all elements of world building, is figuring out when to stop. And I think that's a skill that's taken me a while to develop. I've certainly not had it in the past. Clue number 1, it's 3 AM and you should have gone to bed hours ago. Unless you're in the midst of creative flow, there's a good chance at this point that you're in the dark playground, where you're busy, you feel like you're enjoying yourself, but you're not actually putting anything towards your big goals. I know I'm well and truly in this dark playground when I'm messing with settings in Obsidian for the 1000th time, or I'm creating family trees for NPCs that the characters probably aren't going to meet. Which brings us to clue number 2. You have things in your world where there's no way they're going to come up, even in passing, in the next 10 sessions of your campaign. The top-down and bottom-up approach both have the potential to take us down these novel writing rabbit holes. We don't need to describe the mid-level of the world, unless it's outside of the expectations of our players, or it's something which is going to be a major focus for the campaign for the next few sessions. My notes for the town of Atterberg that I mentioned in the intro would probably look something like this. Atterberg, ye olde mountain town, medieval German style. That's the high-level facts. Such a long history of crime that every outdoor surface is covered in layers of thieves' cant. A small detail. And that's all I'd write. It's 2,000 miles away from where the players are starting, and there's a good chance they'll never get there. If the players begin to get close, or there's a chance they'll teleport there in the next few sessions, of course I'll flesh it out, but that can be a problem for future me once the campaign is up and running. Clue number 3. You find yourself resenting ideas that players bring to the table. If you're at this stage, you've got some big problems, and it's time to sit down with your players and have a chat. One of the first D&D campaigns I played was with a DM who really had written a novel in the world in which we were playing. I thought it would be amazing to have such a rich, detailed world around us. But what actually happened is that as a player, I felt I had a really narrow scope of what my character was allowed to be, and we kept on hearing about the story in the novel happening somewhere else that we couldn't interact with. It's okay to have big stuff happening far away, but the players should feel like their story is the most interesting thing happening in the world at that time. If it's not, then why aren't we telling that story instead? My best tip for world building involves a bit of a change of mindset. It's about trusting your future self and your players to come up with awesome ideas that you just haven't thought of yet. The temptation to have everything in place by session 1 is strong, but it's not necessary. You are an awesome creative person, and you'll be awesome and creative next week and next year as well. The thing I like about my new moderate level of prep is that my ideas now always seem new and fresh, because I've only developed them in the last couple of weeks, so I'm excited to share them with the players at my table. If I'd come up with every detail of the world a year ago, I'm not sure I'd have that same excitement to present it to my group. For me, it's about gaining the ability to trust myself, and knowing that I and my players are going to have an awesome time, even if I have to invent some things on the fly. This took a bit of a leap of faith to try it for the first time, but now that I have, I'm in a much healthier place with my world building and game prep in general, and I've got more time to enjoy myself. There are so many sayings on the subject of perfectionism and completionism, but one I like, which I couldn't find when I searched for it online, so I've decided I've invented it, is perfect and done are mutually exclusive. So my questions to you: are you in that healthy place? Are you in the dark playground? Have you figured out what you're sharing with your players in the next session? Or are you 6 hours deep into thinking about the geopolitical fallout of the poor quality iron coming out of the Fandelver mines and its impact across the Sword Coast? Would you like to know how to share your beautiful, but not overcooked, world with your players in evocative ways? I've got you covered there in this video, all about stealing the scene. How can we take these worlds that we've built and share them with our players in the best possible way? I'll see you there, or at a table near you, rolling an improbable succession of ones. Cheers!